Hello everybody and welcome to the Daily Splatt. Today is video number 11 in our series of 20 reviewing the 2011-2012 English Premier League season, and today's team we'll be reviewing is Newcastle United. Now then, Newcastle United came into this season having been back in the Premier League for one season after their brief 12-month excursion into the Championship. They were back up. They had Chris Hughton in charge for some of the previous season until he was sacked by Mike Ashley and replaced by Alan Pardew. Now, at the time, this was seen as a very unpopular decision, and coming into the new season there was some there were questions being asked of Alan Pardew. You know, this was his first full season in charge, and it would be a case of seeing how he could get this team playing. They had some good performances. Now, the 4-4 draw with Arsenal, of course, lived long in the memory, seeing as they came back from 4-0 down. But they came into this new season. He'd made a couple of acquisitions that a lot of people in England weren't really aware of. They were aware of Demba Ba, who joined from West Ham / Hoffenheim. It's sort of a complicated loan thing there, but essentially he was a free agent, or he didn't really cost them any money. Anyway, he came into their forward line. They also brought in Johan Cabaye to play in their midfield. Hatem Ben Arfa was confirmed as a permanent signing. He had been there on loan. And, you know, when you're looking at some of the other... And Davide Santon was signed from Inter Milan permanently as well, this young 19-year-old left-back. And seemed quite a promising player. And you had a couple of other players which, during Pardew's reign, had sort of seemingly appeared from nowhere, you know, the likes of Tim Krul and Cheick Tiote, and players that had started to make an influence on the team. But this was their first full season, and it was going to be key to see how they did. Also, they did lose a few big names over the summer. Joey Barton, who was there for the first game, just in time to have a bit of a fight with Arsenal's Gervinho in that opening goalless draw at St James's Park. He was moved off to QPR pretty quickly. There was also the departures of Kevin Nolan, who went to West Ham and helped them get promoted up to the Premier League. He decided to go there instead. So there were a couple of sort of big-ish names from Newcastle which were allowed to go. But what happened over the course of the Premier League season, 2011 to 2012, was truly remarkable. Newcastle started very well. Demba Ba, after not scoring in his first couple of games, first 4 or 5 games he went without a goal. He had young Leon Best, who looked sort of impressive, but then Demba Ba clicked into gear and had an incredible 3 months leading up to Christmas and into January. He was getting really important goals, some really spectacular goals as well, which helped Newcastle at the halfway stage of the season be in the top 5 or 6, and, you know, realistically thinking, hey, we could hold on for a Europa League spot, or, you know, if we dare dream, the Champions League. You know, the Toon Army had a team that was playing good football. Cabaye and Tiote in the middle were excellent. Jonas Gutierrez was playing good football, sometimes as an auxiliary left-back to fill in for the departed Jose Enrique. You had the defenders, the two Taylors, Ryan and Stephen, playing fantastic. Fabrizio Colaccini was superb in the centre of defence pretty much the whole season. Danny Simpson, right back, was also having a good season. Tim Krul was making important saves. This whole Newcastle team was just performing beautifully, with the exception of Gabriel Obertan, who I think has now proved himself to be not all that good, sadly. But the majority of the signings were working, and they'd been cheap signings, and this Newcastle side was playing well, and they were getting really important victories. They beat Manchester United 3-0 at home at the turn of the year, in what was an absolutely tremendous performance from the Toon Army. And then in that January transfer window, it was announced that they were going to sign Papis Demba Cisse. And everyone went, who? He's a forward that had been playing for Freiburg in Germany. And he was going to be given the number 9 shirt, which, for people who know Newcastle, is a very important shirt number. Previously worn by Andy Carroll, most recently before Cisse, and then, of course, legendarily by Alan Shearer. Cisse came in and proceeded to do what Demba Ba had been doing. In fact, he seemed to take over, and Ba stopped scoring from that point, although he was being played in sort of a wide left role, which didn't really suit goal-getting for him. Cisse was absolutely phenomenal. He scored what for many people is the goal of the season. Not for me personally. I preferred Peter Crouch's effort for Stoke against Manchester City, but that walloping effort against Chelsea and that 2-0 win for Newcastle, which at the time looked like it could secure them Champions League football, that's a stunning goal, and Cisse was just absolutely brilliant, and this Newcastle side just kept playing brilliantly, and they ended up finishing fifth. This is a side that, 2 years previous to finishing fifth, were a championship team, admittedly one that won the championship quite comfortably and arguably should never have been relegated, but still, they were absolutely fantastic. So, Alan Pardew, quite clearly, he knows how to do stuff. His scout, Alan Carr, was very, very good. Or is it Alan Carr's dad? He's the dad of a famous comedian in the UK. Anyway, point is, they've got an excellent scouting system, a good manager, good team players, and they have qualified for the Europa League, only missing out on the Champions League on the final day when they lost to Everton and other results didn't go their way. But this is a really good base for Newcastle to build from into the new season, and with Tottenham currently in a little bit of turmoil with Harry Redknapp leaving and concerns over the futures of players like Bale and Modric, will they stay and that sort of thing. Newcastle can realistically think, hey, we could seriously compete for a Champions League spot, even though there'll be a resurgent Chelsea, a hopefully strengthened Arsenal for their fans, because they'd like a trophy, and obviously the two Manchester clubs to deal with. There is going to be issues for Newcastle to try and get into that Champions League spot, but finishing fifth was marvellous, really, really good. So much so, people seem to not mind Mike Ashley too much now, and that is truly a bit of a miracle. The overall mark for Newcastle's season, A+. It has to be. They came from nowhere. Well, they didn't come from nowhere. They came from a very sort of humble origin, which Pardew has worked really, really well at creating. However, this is only one season. The key thing for Newcastle will be replicating it into the new season, and that could be difficult if, as it's anticipated, a few big money transfer offers are made to them for the likes of Cabaye and Barr and Tiote and some of their other players, maybe even Cisse possibly, although I very much doubt they'd let him go so soon after joining. These players are being looked at by the very top clubs around Europe, and we'll just have to wait and see how whether they can keep hold of them for next season. I'd like to see them stick together though, because this Newcastle team at times played some of the best football in the league. They were superb in attack, and I can't really state how good a season Tim Krul and Colaccini had in the defence. They were brilliant for Newcastle. So an A+ mark for them and their manager, pretty much everyone involved except Overton, who just really didn't play that well. But oh well. Anyway, so there you go. Newcastle United coming from nowhere and doing very well for themselves. Tomorrow, our 12th video, we'll be reviewing Norwich's season, their first one in the top flight for, I believe it was 7 years. So we'll be having a look at that. Okay then. Until then though, that is all from the Daily Splatt. Sorry that these haven't been out the last few days. It's been a little bit busy around here, so I haven't been able to sit down and look into it all, but I should get another one out either tomorrow or the day after, and yes, make sure you tune in for that. Norwich City review coming up in our next video. Until then, bye bye.